Daly.
Okay, thanks, Ceann Comhairle. Could I just start by complimenting Deputy Collins and her team on bringing forward this legislation here today. I think there is no question whatsoever but that this is the defining issue in Irish society, where we have tens of thousands of homeowners representing hundreds of thousands of individuals who are already in a crisis situation as a result of mortgage difficulties. We have tens of thousands of others waiting in the wings, waiting for them to join those families. And whether our society responds to this issue or not will actually define a generation, in my opinion. And the reality is that all of the measures put forward by this government are not working. They are unsustainable, and they will remain to be unsustainable because they are avoiding the central issue, which is a massive debt which cannot be repaid. And this feeds into all aspects of our lives. We now have in communities all over the conveyor belt where people moved in the expectation in the suburbs of Dublin, Kildare and Wicklow and so on, who bought houses linked to jobs in the city centre, commuted and so on. The jobs are gone, the people are left unable to pay the mortgages without the services to support them. And the services and the perception out there from people is what this government has done is put forward a solution which deals with wealthy people who have been in many ways responsible for the crisis in the first place, the individuals who end up in NAMA leap to mind, and that the ordinary citizens have been left paying their bills. There's also a perception, and both of these perceptions, in my opinion, are a reality, that it is those struggling homeowners who actually do have a little bit of equity in their properties who are in some ways some of the most disadvantaged, in that they are the ones that the banks are mercilessly squeezing. And what people want is not sympathy. They don't want quangos and personal insolvency setups that they cannot access. What they want is a solution to their problems, and this legislation gives it, because it starts with a statutory footing of guaranteeing the protection of the family home, not speculative properties, but the family home. And it points a way forward for people to be released from their debt, which is not just a human cost on those families, which in many instances have been articulated here, but that is necessary for society in order to recover. And the examples are clear. That's not pie in the sky. It's based on the real knowledge of what happened in Norway, as Deputy Collins said, and indeed what happened in Iceland as well. And nobody is putting those economies forward as perfect societies, but you know what? They're in a hell of a lot better position than we are here. The recovery came quicker and people were able to move on with their lives. And the model is simple. You value the property at the market value with 10% extra, park the negative equity. If the person engages in that for a 5-year period, then the unsecured debt is written off and the person can move on with their lives. And it is the case that the banks have been recapitalised for this. And people ask all the time, why me? How come the fellas at the top can get the write-offs and they can move on with their lives? Why can't I do that when all I ever tried to do was put a roof over the head of my family? And every deputy has had those stories at the moment. Unless there is a debt write-down, there can't be any movement forward on this. And I want to emphasise the point made by Deputy Collins. It is the case where one or more mortgage holders are involved that it is many women, disproportionate numbers of women, who are being disadvantaged in this regard. I had 4 phone calls from my constituency today, all of them involving people who had separated. In all cases, the female was left at home with the children, with an uncooperative partner and a milestone debt in terms of the bank. That person needs to be able to secure their home, and I do support the measures in the bill in that regard. It is lunacy what is being proposed at the moment. Before I came here, I had a conversation with a man in my constituency who'd lived in his home for many years. Over the years, they had remortgaged. He is somebody who had worked all his life but lost his job in latter years and is now in a lower paid job. Because they didn't have the money to be able to enter into an arrangement with the bank for 12 months, because they were too poor, they were denied access to mortgage interest supplement because of the changes brought in by the government. So by not being able to access mortgage interest supplement, the bank decided to move in and repossess the property because they weren't able to give them the money. If the bank get away with that and succeed in ousting those people out of their home, the consequences will be that they will then be on the social housing list with nowhere to live, and the state, lo and behold, will be paying more in rent allowance than they could have paid at the moment to assist those people staying in the family home. So that's the lunacy of what is being proposed at the moment. It's bad social policy, apart from being badly morally wrong for the people in that regard, and it's an incredibly destabilising situation. And I want to maybe put it to the Minister and this government that, you know, you can mess around with all your little plans all you like, but the reality is belying your efforts. The reality is telling the story that the banks are getting away with their veto and the real families on the ground are being left behind. And you see, early on that might have been all right. I'm not saying it was morally all right, but you might have got away with it when you were dealing with people who had mortgages maybe in a new development, maybe a mortgage 5 or 6 years old, a ghost estate where they weren't integrated in the community. You're now coming into the settled communities where people have brought up their families, where they're rooted in the areas, like the Kanturk situation, where there will be resistance, because Irish people and evictions do not go hand in hand. You are sowing the seeds of a rebellion in this country, a rebellion grown out of necessity, because all people are looking for is a secure roof over their family's head. It's morally right, it's socially right, and based on this bill put forward by Deputy Collins, it's economically viable if you take the step and pursue this bill to the next stage.
No call, Deputy Thomas.